This happened back in 2012 when I was 28 and working as a forest ranger in Blackwood National Forest, a thick stretch of pine and cedar trees in northern Maine. Before we dive in, let me know in the comments, what country are you watching from? I'd love to see where our viewers are tuning in from. And if you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. My job was simple: walk the trails, check campsites, watch the wildlife, and make sure hikers didn't get lost or start fires. Most days were quiet. It was just me, my coworker Tom, and miles of forest. But one day everything changed, and I still can't forget what happened. Tom was my closest friend at work. He was 32, a thin guy with a fast laugh and a sharp eye for animal tracks. We had worked together as rangers for 3 years, covering the same 50-mile area in Blackwood. By late October, the woods were quiet. Tourist season was over, and the air was cold and sharp. On October 22nd, Tom went to check a trail near Deer Hollow, a rough area with steep slopes and thick plants. He was supposed to call in by 4 p.m. to let us know he was coming back. That call never came. By 5 p.m., I was starting to worry. Tom was never late. I tried his walkie-talkie, but only got static. I told our boss, Ellen, who said to wait until night before panicking. Maybe his battery died, or he had a minor injury. But by 7 p.m., with no sign of him, Ellen started a search. Me, her, and 2 other rangers, Mike and Sarah, grabbed flashlights, maps, and first aid gear and headed to Deer Hollow. The woods at night were creepy, completely dark, with just our boots crunching and the sound of owls breaking the silence. We called Tom's name for hours. No answer, no footprints, no gear, no sign at all. It was like the forest had taken him. We searched for 3 days. Volunteers, police, even dogs came. We checked every trail, looked into ravines, even searched a small pond nearby. Nothing, not even a boot or piece of his clothes. He was gone. The official report said he was missing, likely lost. Some people guessed he got confused, maybe got hurt, or a bear attacked him. But I didn't believe it. Tom knew the forest better than anyone. He wouldn't get lost. Life moved on, but it felt different. I kept doing my job, but each day in the forest felt heavier. I kept looking behind me, half expecting to see Tom smiling or hear his voice on the radio. Then about 2 weeks later, on November 7th, something happened that still gives me chills. It was about 1 a.m., and I was alone in the ranger station, a small cabin with a wood stove and a messy desk covered in maps. I was doing paperwork when my walkie-talkie made noise. At first it was just static, like a faraway storm. Then I heard a voice, quiet, scared, broken up, but clear enough. It was Tom. "Help! Someone's chasing me! He's going to kill me!" His words were fuzzy, filled with static, but I could hear the fear in his voice. "I'm in Deer Hollow. Please hurry." Then the line cut off. I froze, heart pounding. I grabbed the radio and called him, but there was no reply. I called Ellen, who didn't believe me at first but agreed to send a search team. By 2 a.m., Mike, Sarah, and a couple of local officers were back in Deer Hollow, our flashlights shining through thick fog. The forest felt strange that night, like it was watching us. The air was heavy, and every branch snap made my skin crawl. We followed the path Tom had taken the day he vanished. About a mile in, near some rocks, I saw something shiny in the dirt. It was Tom's walkie-talkie, smashed. The antenna was bent, the case cracked. My stomach dropped. There's no way Tom left it like that on purpose. We searched that area for hours, yelling his name, checking every shadow. But again, nothing. No tracks, no blood, no signs of a fight, just the broken walkie. One officer said it could have been some teenagers playing with the radio, but I knew Tom's voice. It was him, and he was scared. We kept searching for more days, but nothing else showed up. The case went cold again. People stopped talking about it, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every night I'd hear his voice in my mind, wondering what he saw and who was after him. I stayed in Blackwood for another year, but it wasn't the same. I avoided Deer Hollow whenever I could, and when I had to go there, it felt like something was waiting for me. I quit the ranger job in 2013 and took a desk job in town. But I still dream about that night, the static on the radio, Tom's voice, the broken walkie in the dirt. I don't know what happened to him, but I know he didn't just vanish. Something bad happened out there. It happened on a Saturday night about a year ago. I was 17, and my parents had gone to a dinner party downtown. It was just me and my little brother Josh. He was 9. We live on the edge of the city, in one of those neighborhoods where houses are spread out and the streetlights barely work. They left around 7 o'clock. I made frozen pizza, and Josh and I were watching old cartoons in the living room. Everything was normal until it got weird. At around 10 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Not the doorbell, just knocking. And it wasn't loud, just slow, steady knocks. I thought maybe it was a neighbor, or maybe my parents forgot their key. I went to the peephole to check. A man was standing there. He had a black hoodie on with the hood up and was holding a big brown paper bag, like the kind delivery drivers use. He didn't look up. He just stared forward. I didn't open the door. I asked through it, "Can I help you?" He looked up slowly. His eyes were blank. No smile, no expression. He said, "Food delivery." "We didn't order anything," I replied quickly. "It's already paid," he said. I felt my stomach turn cold. Something was definitely wrong. "You have the wrong house," I told him, trying to sound serious. "We didn't order anything." He stood there for a second, then turned and walked down the steps. But he didn't get in a car. He just walked away down the street. I stood there frozen for a minute, then double-checked the locks and made sure the windows were closed. I told Josh to go upstairs and stay in my room. I didn't want to scare him, so I just said someone weird had been outside. About 10 minutes later, there was another knock. Softer this time, slower, like the person wasn't in a rush. This time it was a woman. She looked about 30, with blonde hair and a messy bun. She had on jeans and a light jacket, like she just got off work. She was breathing a little hard, like she'd been running. "Hi," she said with a weak smile through the side window. "Sorry to bother you. My car broke down nearby, and my phone is dead. Can I just use yours to call my husband?" She didn't look scary. Actually, she looked the opposite, tired, cold, and maybe even scared. But then I saw something strange. She kept glancing to her left, not in a normal way. Her eyes were darting. So I stepped to the side and peeked through the curtain. That's when I saw him. The same man from earlier, in the black hoodie, was standing at the far edge of our yard, behind a tree. He wasn't looking at the woman. He was staring right at the window I was behind, like he knew I was there. I didn't open the door. I didn't say a word. I backed away and ran upstairs. Josh was on my bed with headphones on, watching something on my laptop. I whispered, "Get in the closet." I didn't explain. I just helped him in and shut the door. I went to the bathroom with my phone and locked the door. I called 911. The dispatcher asked if they were trying to break in. I said, "Not yet," and told her everything. The fake delivery guy, the woman, the man in the yard. She told me to stay quiet, keep the doors locked, and officers would be there in less than 10 minutes. Those were the longest 10 minutes of my life. I listened hard. No glass breaking, no footsteps, just silence. When the police got there, I heard them shouting outside. I looked out the window and saw flashlights in the yard. The woman was gone. The man was gone too. One cop talked to me while others checked around. They said we weren't the only ones. Another house 6 blocks away had the same thing happen 20 minutes earlier. Same fake food drop-off, same woman asking to use the phone. Only this time, someone opened the door. They didn't get hurt, but their house was broken into. The guy ran in as soon as the door opened, and the woman tried to keep it open. The couple inside fought back and called for help. The two people ran off before police arrived. Cops think they were trying different houses looking for people home alone, using fake stories to get inside. They never caught them, but I still think about it. What if I had opened the door? What if Josh had answered while I was upstairs or in the bathroom? What do you think about today's topic? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. It was the summer of 2018, and my best friend Jake and I badly needed a break. College was rough, nonstop homework, late nights, and trying to balance part-time jobs with school. So when Jake found a cheap cabin rental on a lake a few hours from campus, we were all in. It was a last-minute cancellation on Airbnb, just a one-room cabin at Lake Wister, Oklahoma, with a dock, a fire pit, and a low price. We didn't care that it was simple. We just wanted to fish and forget school for a while. We split the $200, packed our bags, and hit the road in Jake's beat-up Honda Civic. The drive was nothing special, just music and jokes about catching enough fish to feed us all week. Lake Wister was packed in July. Families, boats, loud music. But our cabin was tucked away in a quieter part of the lake, down a bumpy gravel road surrounded by pine trees. It was tiny, about 500 square feet, with old wooden siding and a droopy front porch. Inside it smelled like damp wood and mildew, but it had a couch, a small kitchen, and a bedroom with 2 twin beds. A sliding glass door led to a back deck facing the lake, and a shaky dock stretched into the water. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours for the week. That first day was great. We got there at noon, unpacked, and spent the day fishing off the dock. Jake caught a small bass, and we cooked it with some hot dogs for dinner. The lake was noisy, kids shouting, boats roaring, music drifting from other cabins. We opened a few Coors Lights, sat on the deck, and watched the sunset turn the lake orange. It felt like real freedom, but that night things started to feel strange. We were both tired from the trip and the sun, so we went to bed early around 10 p.m. The bedroom was stuffy, so we left the sliding glass door open a crack and locked the screen. I fell asleep listening to crickets and the splash of fish in the lake. Sometime after midnight, I woke up to a low rumbling sound. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. A boat engine running slowly somewhere close to the cabin. I lay in bed half asleep, wondering if I was just imagining things. The lake was always busy during the day, but hearing that sound this late at night felt strange. I sat up and looked over at Jake, who was snoring quietly. The room was dark, except for a soft light coming through the screen door. I got up slowly, my bare feet cold on the wooden floor, and walked to the glass door. The engine sound was easier to hear now, soft and steady, like someone was just sitting out on the water. I looked through the screen, letting my eyes adjust to the dark. The lake looked black, the moon hidden behind clouds, but I could see the faint shape of our dock. Then I saw a bright light, sharp and white, slowly moving across the water like someone was shining a flashlight along the shoreline. The light paused on our dock for a second, then turned off. My heart started beating faster. I told myself it was probably a fisherman or someone checking their boat. But why the flashlight? Why stop right by our dock? I stayed still, listening, waiting for the engine to move away. After a few minutes, it did. The sound faded slowly into the distance. I checked the screen door, still locked. I got back into bed, still feeling uneasy, but too tired to think much about it. Maybe it was just a random boat. The next morning, Jake was already up, making coffee in the kitchenette. Sunlight filled the room, and the lake was loud again with boats and people. I told Jake about the boat engine and flashlight, but he just shrugged. Probably some drunk guy fishing or being stupid, he said, pouring coffee into a chipped mug. People do weird stuff at lakes. I nodded, trying to believe it. We decided to walk out to the dock and see if anything looked strange. The morning air was warm, and the lake and pine trees smelled strong. The dock creaked under us as we walked to the end. Everything looked normal. No signs that anyone had touched it, but when we turned back toward the cabin, Jake suddenly stopped. "Dude," he said, pointing near the back door. "What's that?" In the soft dirt just off the deck were footprints. They were big, maybe size 11 or 12, and covered in mud like someone had walked out of the lake. The prints came from the water, up the small hill, and ended right at the back door. I felt sick. I looked at the trail, trying to understand it. The mud still looked wet, shining in the sunlight. "Okay, that's creepy," Jake said, his voice low. "Did you check the door last night?" "Yeah," I said, my throat dry. "It was locked. The screen was locked too." We checked both doors again. Still locked, no damage. But then I remembered something. The spare key. The host had told us it would be under a flower pot on the deck in case of emergency. I lifted the pot, expecting to see the little key like it was before. It was gone. "Maybe it fell," Jake said, but he didn't really believe it. We searched all over the deck, under the chairs, even around the grass. No key. I felt a chill even though it was hot outside. Someone had been right outside our cabin while we were sleeping. We tried to move past it. We fished, went swimming, even walked along the lake to see the other cabins. Most were bigger, full of families or groups having fun. Our cabin felt far away from them, like it was off by itself. I kept thinking about those footprints, now drying out in the sun. By the afternoon, they were hard to see, but I couldn't stop thinking about them. That night, we were both nervous. We checked every lock, front door, back door, screen, and windows. Jake turned on the porch light, and I didn't argue. We didn't say much about it, but I knew he was scared too. We stayed up late, playing cards and trying to keep calm. Around 11 p.m., we heard it again. The same low rumble of a boat engine. This time, Jake heard it too. We both froze, listening. The sound came closer, then stopped, just like the night before. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, pointing it out through the screen door. It wasn't strong enough to reach the lake, but I could clearly see the dock. Nothing there. No light, no motion. The boat's engine ran for a few more seconds, then went silent. We stayed quiet, barely breathing, but nothing else happened. No flashlight, no footsteps. Eventually we went to bed, but I barely got any sleep. Every little sound made me jump. The next morning we checked the deck again. No new footprints. Nothing seemed touched, but the spare key was still gone. Jake started getting really nervous. He said maybe someone was watching the cabin, waiting for us to leave so they could come back. I didn't want to think that, but it started making sense. We decided to call the Airbnb host, a guy named Mike who lived about 30 minutes away. When we told him about the footprints and the missing key, he didn't sound happy. Probably just some kids messing around, he said. Happens now and then at the lake. People get drunk and wander where they shouldn't. I'll bring you a new key tomorrow. What he said made sense, but I still didn't feel better. We stayed close to the cabin all day, watching the lake closely. Every boat that passed made us nervous. I started noticing little things, like how the trees blocked the cabin from the road, and how there were no cameras anywhere. Our nearest neighbor was about 200 yards away, and their cabin looked empty. That night we planned to stay awake and watch. We turned off all the lights so we could see outside but not be seen. We sat on the couch facing the glass door with a baseball bat Jake had found in the closet. Time passed slowly. The lake was quiet except for frogs and owls. Around 1 a.m., we heard the boat again. This time it was louder and closer. I grabbed the bat, my hands sweaty. Jake leaned toward the window, eyes squinting. There, he whispered, pointing. A faint glow flickered on the lake, about 50 feet from the dock. It didn't look like a flashlight this time. It looked like the glow from a phone screen, moving a little like someone in a boat holding it. Then the light went out and the engine got louder. The boat moved away. We didn't sleep at all that night. By morning, we were tired and on edge. We checked the deck again. No footprints, no mess. But the feeling that something was wrong wouldn't go away. Jake wanted to leave, but I talked him into staying one more night. We had already paid, and I didn't want to let whoever was out there ruin our trip. Plus, Mike was bringing a new key that afternoon. Mike came around 3 p.m., wearing a flannel shirt and a baseball cap. He gave us the new key and said sorry about everything. When we told him about the boat and the light, he frowned. Probably poachers, he said. People sneak onto the lake to fish without permits. They check docks to make sure no one's watching. Just lock up and you'll be fine. Poachers. It kind of made sense. But it didn't explain the missing key or the footprints. After he left, we set up a small trap. We tied fishing line across the steps leading to the deck, low enough that someone wouldn't see it at night. If they came up, they'd trip and we'd hear it. We also pushed the couch in front of the sliding door, just in case. That night we sat in the dark again, waiting. The lake was extra quiet. The air felt thick and damp. Around 2 a.m., we heard the engine. No doubt this time, it was that same low growl, now so close it shook the cabin walls. I grabbed the bat. My heart was racing. Jake stood at the window. I see it, he whispered. It's at the dock. I joined him, staring into the dark. The moon was out now, giving just enough light to see a small boat floating near our dock, about 15 feet long. No lights, no sound, just sitting there. Then we heard it, a soft splash, like someone stepping into the water. My blood went cold. Jake grabbed my arm, eyes wide. The fishing line. We waited, listening. No sound, no crack, no steps on the dock. Nothing. The engine started again, and we watched the boat slowly move away into the night. We didn't sleep. We waited for sunrise, then packed our stuff as fast as we could. We didn't care about the money or the extra nights. Something wasn't right, and we weren't going to stay. As we loaded the car, I noticed something on the dock. A small, wet pile of lake weeds, like someone had pulled them out and dropped them there. I didn't say a word. I just wanted to leave. We drove back to campus without talking much, the lake disappearing behind us. When we got home, I looked up the Airbnb listing. It was gone. I tried to text Mike, but his number didn't work anymore. A week later, I saw a news story about Lake Wister. They had found a body in the lake, caught in fishing nets. The police said it was an accident, but I couldn't stop seeing that boat, that light, those muddy footprints at our back door. I don't know who was out there or what they wanted. Maybe they were poachers, like Mike said. Maybe not. But I'll never go back to that lake, and I'll never rent a cabin again. I'm 14, and my name's Sophia. It was a Friday night in October, and my parents had gone out for their usual date night. They had left me home alone before, so I wasn't really worried. Our house is in a quiet suburban neighborhood where everyone knows everyone, and nothing strange ever really happens. Or at least that's what I thought. It was around 7 p.m., and the sky was already dark. I was laying on the couch, scrolling through TikTok, laughing at random videos. The TV was on in the background, playing some random Netflix show, but I wasn't paying much attention to it. The house was quiet except for the soft sound of the fridge humming and the creaks from the old wooden floors. My parents had left a pizza in the oven for me, and I was letting it cool down. They said they'd be home by 10 o'clock, so I had the whole place to myself for a few hours. I was texting my friend Emma about some school drama when I heard a sound outside. It was soft, like a stick snapping. Our backyard has a big oak tree, and sometimes squirrels or stray cats mess around out there, so I didn't think too much of it. But then I heard it again, louder this time, like something heavy stepping on the gravel path near the back door. My stomach turned a little, but I told myself it was probably nothing. I muted the TV and listened carefully. It was completely quiet. I laughed at myself for being nervous and turned the volume back up. A few minutes later, I went to the kitchen to grab a slice of pizza. The back door has a little window, and when I walked past it, I looked outside. The porch light was off, which was odd because it turns on when something moves. I thought maybe the bulb had burned out, but then I saw something, a shape moving near the edge of the yard where the neighbor's light barely reached. It looked like a person, tall and thin, just standing still. My heart started racing. I froze and stared, waiting for it to move. It didn't. I told myself it was probably just a bush or something and tried to calm down. I grabbed my pizza and quickly went back to the living room, locking the kitchen door on the way. I sat on the couch, pulled my knees up, and tried to focus on my phone. But something felt off. I kept glancing at the windows, scared someone might be watching. The curtains were still open, and the dark outside felt like it was pushing against the glass. I got up and shut every curtain in the house and double-checked the front door. By 8 p.m., I was a nervous mess. Every small noise, the heater turning on, the wind tapping the shutters, made me jump. I texted my mom to ask when they'd be home, but she didn't answer. She's never great at checking her phone when she's out. I tried to watch a comedy show to take my mind off things, but I kept pausing it to listen. That's when I heard a knock. It was soft at first, coming from the back door. 3 slow taps. I went cold. I sat still, holding my phone tightly, waiting for it to happen again. Maybe it was a neighbor, but who knocks like that at night? I walked quietly to the kitchen, keeping the lights off so no one could see inside. I peeked through the curtain on the back door. Nothing, just the dark. I turned to walk away, and then I heard it again. 3 soft knocks, but now from the front door. I rushed to the living room, sliding in my socks on the wood floor. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my ears. I grabbed the house phone and started dialing 911, but didn't hit call yet. I didn't want to look silly if it turned out to be nothing. I moved carefully to the front window and peeked through a small gap in the curtain. A man was standing on the porch. He was tall, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I could tell he was staring at the door. He raised his hand and knocked again, harder this time. I dropped down, shaking all over. I hit call and whispered to the 911 operator that someone was outside my house and I was alone. She told me to stay calm, lock myself in a room, and wait for the police. I ran to my parents' room with a kitchen knife, locked the door, and pushed a chair under the handle. I hid in the closet, clutching the knife and phone, trying not to cry. Then I heard the back door rattle, like someone was trying the knob. Then came a loud thud, like a kick. I whispered to the operator, begging her to hurry. She said the police would be there in 5 minutes. It felt like forever. The banging stopped, and then I heard footsteps crunching outside, slowly moving around the house. I saw his shadow pass the bedroom window, slow and careful, like he was searching for a way in. I don't know how long I stayed there, curled up in the dark, listening to every single sound. Finally, I heard sirens. The footsteps stopped. I saw blue and red lights flashing outside the window. The police looked around the yard and found footprints by the back door, but the man was gone. They stayed until my parents came home, and I've never felt so relieved. The police didn't find him. They thought it was probably someone looking to break in easily, but ever since I double-checked the locks over and over before bed. Every creak in the house makes me think he's back. I still don't know what he wanted, but I'll always remember how his shadow moved, like he knew I was watching. In May 1994, my girlfriend Bunny and I needed a short break from our jobs in Nashville. We found a weekend farmhouse rental in the classified section of the Tennessean newspaper. The ad was simple: 2-bedroom farmhouse, quiet, mountain view. Call Mr. Doran. When I called, an older man picked up. He said the house used to belong to his parents and the key would be under a chipped blue flower pot on the porch. 2 nights for $80 sounded great, so we sent a check and packed our things. The drive on Route 41 was peaceful. Green fields and old barns painted with fading Sea Rock City signs. A gravel road led us past a leaning mailbox with Doran painted faintly on it. The farmhouse sat alone on a small hill, backed by tall pine and poplar trees. The air smelled fresh from a recent rain, like wet earth and flowers. Inside, the house looked like it hadn't changed in years. Old quilts with star patterns were draped over saggy furniture. A ticking clock hung on the living room wall. As we carried our bags down the hall, Bunny stopped and pointed. One wooden door halfway down the hallway was tightly shut, with a heavy deadbolt on the outside. The door frame had deep scratches, like someone had tried to force it open. Every other door in the house had simple brass knobs. I joked maybe it was where Mr. Doran kept his tools or old furniture. Bunny didn't laugh. The heavy lock felt strange in such a calm, cozy home. But I pushed the thought away. We made some food, played music on an old radio, and planned to hike the Smokies the next day. By 10 p.m., it was pitch black outside and raining steadily. We turned off the lights and crawled under a soft quilt in the front bedroom, the ticking clock helping us drift off. Just after midnight, a dull sound woke me. I thought maybe the wind had hit a loose shutter, but the noise came from inside the house somewhere down the hallway. I held my breath. Then came a dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled along the wood floor. It only lasted a few seconds, then nothing but the rain on the roof. Bunny whispered that she heard it too. I told her it was probably the old house creaking, but I didn't believe it myself. Morning came, and it all felt less scary. We made coffee, had some toast, and drove to Laurel Falls Trailhead. Families and kids were everywhere, and the sound of laughter by the river made us forget the night. Later, we explored Pigeon Forge, bought a jar of honey, and talked about moving to the countryside one day. As we drove back, the sun was setting and fireflies blinked in the grass. The lights from the farmhouse looked warm and inviting. We watched a VHS tape on a portable player Bunny had borrowed. Around 11 o'clock, the rain came back, pounding the roof like clapping hands. 5 seconds after I turned off the lamp, we heard the same thud again. This time it was louder. A picture frame on the dresser even shook. Bunny grabbed my arm. Then came the dragging sound, longer than before. I opened the closet and found an old aluminum bat. We waited, barely breathing, but heard nothing else. I turned on a lamp and peeked into the hallway. It was empty. That strange locked door still sat closed, but something made my skin crawl. Fresh scratches marked the doorframe, lighter and newer than the old ones. Bunny wanted to leave right away, but driving dark back roads in a storm felt worse. We pushed the dresser in front of our bedroom door, left the light on, and lay there listening. At around 2 a.m., the thud came again, softer this time. No dragging after it. I guess I eventually fell asleep. When dawn came, I tried calling Mr. Doran using the kitchen phone. The line was disconnected. When I stepped onto the porch for air, I noticed faint marks on the paint beneath an upstairs window. They hadn't been there before. It looked like someone had climbed in or out. Bunny and I had seen enough. We packed quickly, didn't even fold the quilts, and drove away. We stopped for breakfast at a diner in Cavierville and told the waitress a short version of the story. When I said Doran, she frowned and told us the old man had died 2 summers ago. His kids lived in Knoxville now, and the farmhouse hadn't been used. On the way back, we stopped at the Sevier County Sheriff's Office and filed a report. The deputy took notes and said someone would check it out. A few weeks later, I called twice. They said the house was empty. No signs of break-in except the scratches. One deputy guessed raccoons could have gotten inside and moved stuff around. But I grew up around raccoons. They don't sound like a grown man dropping something heavy. I asked if the locked door had been opened. He said the bolt was still in place, and there was nothing inside worth noting. Bunny and I never went back for our deposit. I live alone in a small brick house on Oak Ridge Lane, a quiet street where nothing exciting ever seems to happen. Across from me sits a 2-story place with faded green shutters. The owner, Mr. Dalton, moved overseas for work 4 months ago, and the house has been empty since. A real estate sign still leans against the mailbox. Because I work late hours, I'm often awake when most of the neighborhood is asleep, so I notice small things others miss. One Tuesday night, while scrolling on my phone in the living room recliner, I saw a light flicker in Mr. Dalton's second-floor window. It was exactly 2 a.m. The glow was weak, like an old bulb barely staying on. It blinked on and off 3 or 4 times, then shut off. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe a lamp with a timer had been left on. The next night, the same thing happened. Same window, same time, same flickering light. That felt weird. Timers don't usually go off at the exact same time 2 nights in a row after being unused for months. I walked over to my front window, pushed the blinds aside, and watched. After a few seconds, the light went out again. No motion, nothing, I told myself. Wires can act up in empty houses, and went to bed. But by Friday, the flicker had appeared 3 more times, always right at 2 a.m., and never lasting more than 30 seconds. My curiosity grew. I work at a hardware store and know a bit about electrical stuff, and faulty wiring doesn't follow a perfect schedule. I thought about calling the property manager but didn't want to seem like a bored night owl causing trouble. That Saturday morning, I made coffee at 1:50 a.m. and sat by my bedroom window, ready to see the whole thing. At exactly 2 a.m., the light turned on, flickering like a candle in wind. I leaned forward, staring at the window. Then the light went out. For 3 seconds, nothing. On the 4th, a tall shadow stepped into view behind the glass. It didn't move. It just stood there, shoulders square, staring in my direction. Even from across the street, I could feel its focus on me, like heat. My mouth went dry. I ducked under the window ledge, heart racing. 100 questions ran through my mind. A squatter? Vandals? Something worse? I grabbed my phone and tried calling my brother, but he didn't answer. When I peeked again, the window was dark and empty. At sunrise, I drove to the corner coffee shop, still shaken. I asked the barista, who lived a block away, if anyone had moved into the Dalton house. She seemed surprised and said the house had been off the market for 2 months due to a plumbing issue. No one had moved in. The emergency number for the agent was taped to the door. I used it. The agent picked up, listened to my story, and said they'd send a patrol car. That evening, a police officer came to my door. He told me they'd gone through the house. All doors were locked, thick dust on the floors, no footprints, no signs of entry. He said the power was still on because the owner kept the furnace running to avoid freezing pipes. He figured it was a loose wire. Knowing the police had checked should have calmed me down, but the memory of that still shadow wouldn't leave me. So I set up an old smartphone on a tripod in my window, aimed at the Dalton house, and pressed record. If the light showed up again, I'd have proof. Sunday night, 1:55 a.m., I sat beside the camera with a notebook in hand. The street was quiet. No cars, no wind, just the soft hum from the fridge downstairs. When the clock flipped to 2 o'clock, the upstairs window across the street lit up. This time the flicker lasted nearly a minute. Through my camera, I saw the shadow again. Taller now, thin, head tilted slightly to the left, as if looking back at me. Then something different happened. The shadow raised its arm and waved. I jumped so hard that my chair scraped across the wooden floor. Right then, every light in my house went out. My camera screen went black. I was left in complete darkness, only the dim street lamp still glowing outside. I reached for my phone, shaking, and called 911. Cops showed up within 5 minutes. 2 officers checked my house first. No signs of anyone. No damage to the breaker box. Then they went to the Dalton place. I stood on my porch and watched their flashlights move through the rooms. After about 20 minutes, they returned. One officer said they'd found the hallway light fixture on the second floor hanging loose. Bulbs shattered on the floor below. Everything else was still covered in dust, except a new scuff on the windowsill facing my house. No footprints again, but someone or something had touched the sill recently enough to leave a clean mark. The property agent changed the locks and shut off power the next day. That night I stayed at my brother's apartment across town. We set up a live stream using my spare laptop, camera aimed at the Dalton window, to prove nothing else would happen once the power was off. At 1:59 a.m., the screen showed only darkness. We waited quietly. At exactly 2 o'clock, the screen flashed white like a camera going off behind glass. No flickering glow, just a single flash. In that split second, we saw the shape of a face right at the window, eyes level with the camera lens, and then everything went dark. My brother slammed the laptop shut and said I was staying with him for the week. 2 days later, the property agent, an electrician, and a police officer walked through the Dalton house. The main breaker was off, and all the wires were cold. The shattered bulb was still where it had been. No new broken glass, no new footprints, and no sign anyone had been inside since the locks were changed. I asked the electrician about the final flash. He said the fixture wasn't even connected anymore. A month later, I sold my house and moved in with a roommate downtown. This happened in the fall of 2013 when I was 27 and living in rural Ohio. I was working as a delivery driver for a small auto parts company, taking supplies to mechanic shops around the state. Most of the time, my routes were during the day, but once in a while I'd get stuck with a late delivery. That's when this nightmare happened, and I still get chills thinking about it. It was late October around 10 p.m., and I was driving my company van, a worn-out Ford Transit, down State Route 33, a quiet two-lane road going through farmland and forest patches. I had just dropped off brake pads at a shop in Logan and was heading back to Columbus, about an hour away. There were no cars around, no streetlights, just my headlights cutting through the darkness. The radio was off because the speakers were busted, so it was just me, the sound of the engine, and leaves brushing across the road. About 20 minutes into the drive, something strange happened. My headlights picked up a shape on the roadside, maybe a quarter-mile ahead. At first, I thought it was a deer, which are common out there. But as I got closer, it looked like a person standing still, facing away from the road. They were tall, wearing dark clothes, just standing there without moving. I slowed down, thinking maybe they needed help. Flat tires or car trouble weren't unusual out here. I rolled down my window and called out, "Hey, you okay?" No answer. The person didn't even turn around. I figured they didn't hear me, so I kept driving, glancing at the rearview mirror. The figure was gone, like they had vanished into the woods. It creeped me out, but I told myself it was probably just a hunter or someone walking home. A few miles later, things got weirder. My dashboard clock started blinking, switching between 10:47 p.m. and random times like 3:12 or 7:56. I tapped it, thinking it was just a loose wire, but it kept glitching. Then the engine sputtered for a moment, like it was choking. I cursed, worried I might break down. The road was dead silent. No cars, no houses, nothing but fields and darkness. Then I heard it, a slow, steady thumping, like someone knocking on the back of the van. I froze, gripping the wheel tight. I checked my mirrors. No one was there. The knocking stopped, then started again, louder, like fists on metal. I pulled over, heart pounding, and grabbed my flashlight. I stepped out and checked around the van. Nothing. No marks, no sign of anyone. I got back in, locked the doors, and sped off. 10 minutes later, I saw it again. The same figure on the right side of the road, still facing away. Same clothes, same posture. My stomach dropped. There was no way they could have gotten that far ahead on foot. I didn't stop this time. I drove by, staring in the rear-view mirror. The figure didn't move, but I swear it turned its head as I passed. I couldn't see the face, just a shadow under a hood. My hands were shaking, but I kept going, convincing myself I was tired and imagining things. Then the radio turned on by itself. No music, just loud static. I hit the power button, but it stayed on. Through the static, I heard something, a voice faint and muffled, like it was coming from far away. It sounded like a man whispering, "Stop! Turn back!" Again and again. I hit the dashboard, yelling for it to stop. The voice kept getting louder, more panicked. I finally yanked the power cord from the back of the radio, and it shut off. My heart was racing so hard I could feel it in my throat. I was almost to the highway when I saw the figure again, this time standing in the middle of the road under a flickering streetlight, facing me. I slammed on the brakes. The van skidded to a stop. The figure just stood there. It was too tall, arms hanging at its sides, face hidden in shadow. I honked and yelled, but it didn't move. Then it slowly lifted one arm and pointed right at me. I threw the van in reverse, tires spinning as I backed away. When I looked again, it was gone. Nothing. Just the empty road. I didn't stop until I reached a 24-hour gas station by the highway. I parked, lights on, doors locked, and waited until sunrise. I called in sick and took a week off. After that, I refused to do night deliveries. I never saw that figure again, but I still feel like it's out there, waiting. I quit that job months later and moved to Dayton, far from Route 33. Even now, I avoid driving at night. Sometimes as I fall asleep, I think I can still hear that static and that voice telling me to turn back. I don't know what I saw out there, but it wasn't human, and I'm never going back to find out. I'll never forget the time I almost lost my life in 2022. It was in September, and I was living in Alaska, Wisconsin. I was a sophomore in high school then. That summer, I met a 17-year-old guy named Austin at my job. He used to go to the same school as me, but got kicked out for cheating. He picked me up and dropped me off from work every day during summer because I didn't have a driver's license. It was clear he had a crush on me. He hugged me every day, but I acted like I didn't notice. I didn't feel the same way about him. Now we were in the second or third week of school, and I was still adjusting from summer. One night after a party thrown by a kid from school, Austin drove me home. As I was about to get out of the car, he hesitated and asked if I wanted to go out with him. I laughed and told him I just wanted to be friends. He said all right with a sad look. We waved goodbye. I went inside, took off my shoes, changed, brushed my teeth, and got ready for bed. But before I could sleep, I got a message from a friend. I opened my phone and what I read will haunt me forever. It was a long message explaining that Austin had been secretly taking pictures of me while I slept, through my bedroom window. I used to leave my blinds open because no light ever came through. My friend said Austin bragged to her about it in texts, even had an album called The Love of My Life with those photos. My heart dropped. I texted him in all caps, telling him to never talk to me again. He said sorry and tried to act like the victim. That made me even more upset. I told him again to leave me alone and then blocked him. I couldn't sleep anymore, so I took melatonin and Benadryl. It worked for a while. I don't know what time it was, but I woke up to the sound of my window breaking. Before I could move, Austin was in my room. I didn't see what was in his hand, but I felt a knife stabbing my face. I screamed and cried. About 5 seconds later, my dad shouted from the hallway, "What the hell is going on?" Austin ran out through the broken window. My dad ran into my room and looked terrified. He hugged me, asking if I was okay and what had happened. I told him the truth, that Austin had come through the window and stabbed me. My dad looked even more angry now and ran outside trying to find him, but Austin was gone. I called the police. They arrived in 10 minutes with medics. I was dizzy and bleeding. My dad gave me water and a towel to wrap up in. I told the police what had happened. They took me to the hospital. I stayed overnight. The police searched for Austin, and after a while they found him. I later learned that at the hospital, Austin admitted what he did, said he didn't know why, and said he loved me. He was charged with attempted first-degree intentional homicide and armed burglary. He got a $50,000 cash bond. A year later, he was found guilty of the first charge. The second was dropped, but still read in court. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison and 4 years of supervision after that. Justice was served, but I'm still afraid of new people, especially men. I know I sound paranoid, but the trauma is still with me. I wish nothing but pity for Austin, and I hope he goes to hell when he dies.